Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Van Buren Variety Show. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. Glad you could join us. For those of you that are just tuning in or haven't been familiar with the show, this is a variety show where every week I have a different guest talking about a different topic. It could be a profession, it could be a hobby, a general talent. We'll also have some musical guests lined up that'll perform for the show. So every week at Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central and 8 p.m. Eastern, it'll be a different guest with a different topic. And I hope you enjoyed as much as I've enjoyed putting this show on. So we'll get started. Hope everyone's had a great week so far. Been working very, very strenuously, but it pays the bills, right? Watched some older movies earlier this week. I'm into older films, as some of you may know. I like the modern movies too, but I really like the classics. So I finished watching a Western here a while back, and then I watched another war picture. So then I like the new stuff. I like the old stuff too. So be sure to check some of the older classics out. But tonight, the topic's going to be about bar and restaurant ownership and management. Some of you may have been thinking about going into business for yourself. Not sure what you want to do, but this is one maybe technical aspect you haven't thought about. Owning a bar, owning a restaurant, managing a bar, managing a restaurant. And what better person to talk about it than someone who's been there, done that, tell us all the ins and outs, his experiences, what to expect, and just a general overall of what it's like to own your own bar. So without further ado, let me bring my guest in for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rob, and he will be talking about his ownership and management of the bar and restaurant he once owned. Rob, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show. We're glad you're here.
Hey, Bob, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So let's get started. Tell us more about your career that you had, your career path, your bar ownership, restaurant management, how you got into it, how it started. Just I'll let you start.
Well, thanks, Bob. I'm humbled to be on your show as your third
Thank you.
guest. And, when you asked me to be on and talk about that, I was like, wow, I never gave great thought to that. I did that for the past 13 and a half years. And, I never had any intentions of being a bar owner, not even to be a business owner for that matter. When way back when I was in high school, you're going about planning out your life and your career. And I was always wanted to be a science guy. I wanted to be an oceanographer, archaeologist. I wanted to be in something in science forestry. And then, as time went on, I found out they don't pay very well. But even more importantly, I stunk in math. And math was like a prerequisite to get into college and take that. So I kind of said, whatever. And then I wanted to get into journalism and broadcasting, and my dad talked me out of it because that's kind of like a make it or break it field. I mean, it's a good job. There's plenty of people that do well at it, but let's face it, that's a tough career, and he knew that I was money motivated. That's why I'm wearing the green bandana today. And so I said, well, I guess I'll just go into business. So I went to University of Michigan, and my third year in Michigan, as a junior, I got an apprenticeship at Ford Motor Company in operations and management. And they hired me while I was still in college, and I worked 19 years in operations in management with Fords. And I was excited as all can get out, and after about 10 years, I had a lot of friends that started getting in, doing their own thing, owning their own businesses. A lot of them were in auto detailing. A lot of them owned a gas station. Some owned party stores. So I kind of set my sights at something like that. And I was pretty frugal with my money throughout my career, and put a lot of money aside and lived well, bought a house, had a car. I was married for a brief amount of time. And then after 19 years, I I put in my resignation. Prior to the 19 years, the last 2 years, 17, I started researching, started drawing up a business plan to get into the bar business. I had a couple friends who were doing well with it, and I learned from them, and I decided, to pack it up. Now, with that being said, my entire family thought I was crazy. My dad's like, "You got 19 years in. You're 40 years old." I started Ford at 21. After 19 years, I was 40 years old. My dad says, "You're nuts. You can retire in 10 more years." I was burnt out, didn't want to do it, and I wanted to go on and start a business. And not a better way than to serve people. I love customer service. I love to see people have a good time. I'm kind of a showman, and I like to see everybody smile, and not a better way to do it to get in the bar industry.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask you. So you said you went to school. Tell me about your education again before you got into that.
Yeah, sure. I got a bachelor's degree in business, a major in marketing and management at University of Michigan, and a minor in psychology. And so, as I said, while I was in college, I was recruited before I graduated from Ford's, and I joined their management program. And that's my career. That was before I graduated from college, I already had a career set. It was just a matter of, getting my degree and then starting full time. So I worked a full year as an apprentice, working like 20 hours a week for my senior year in college.
Well, when you got into this, did you build your own bar or did you buy an existing bar?
Well, it's kind of a funny story because right around 2 years before I bought the bar, there was a bar about not too far from my house, about 2 miles away. And when I seen the bar, it wasn't that I wanted to buy the actual bar, but I seen the property. The property was about an acre and a half of land backing up to the woods. It was about a 2,500 square foot building, which was an existing bar.
Okay.
Ample parking, a lot of room if you wanted to expand. And starting out, I just wanted to buy that property and maybe not convert it. I was thinking about doing several other things with it, but then and a lot of it had to do with automotive, right? It was going to be like a detail shop and an auto shop. But then, you know what? It was already set up as a bar, which was a bar that I actually frequented and liked it. And so the 2 years prior, I kept telling the owner of the bar that, "Hey, man, when you're ready to sell this place, give me a call because I want to buy it, give you an offer." And 2 years, just me 2 years of going back and forth talking to the guy. I was a pain in the ass to him, excuse me, but I was like, "Look, I want this, I want this." Not that I wanted to own a bar, but I wanted the property. And then finally one day we struck a deal. And then I still did not know what I wanted to do with the property, but I was kind of anxious and I was kind of apprehensive. And then I kind of started running and managing the bar. And then it turned into, a 13-year career.
13 years. That's great. Well, let me ask you, what type of bar was this? Was there a particular bar?
Well, the bar that I ran was a sports bar. A sports bar and grill.
Right.
Sports bar and grill. More of a bar. It was. See, in the beginning of this bar was a tough bar too. It's a very elaborate story. This bar wasn't really a money-making bar. In fact, they let it kind of dilapidate a little bit.
Really?
It just wasn't taken care of, and it was a rough crowd. And there were a lot of fights that broke out inside and outside of the bar. The police were always called over there.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, my dad says, when I told my dad I was buying the bar, he was like, he really thought I was nuts. And I said, "Dad, you got to have faith. I can see something here." But prior to my takeover, prior to me taking it over, it was a shot and beer joint where, a lot of roughnecks went in and a lot of cleaning up had to be done. So my first priority was to clean it up, in which I had to go in my first year, and I hired a bunch of heavyweights, some bouncers, some people. In fact, a couple people ran with a couple biker gangs to to clear out the fights and everything. And if people came in and fought, I was immediately on the phone calling the police, and the police would come make arrests. And I had to do that. The first year was a nightmare. In fact, I questioned why I was doing this because the first year was terrible. Fights broke out, everything, but I was sticking to my guns and to clean this place up. And you got to remember too, I saved all my money throughout my 19 years, and I didn't finance this. I bought this thing cash money, so it was all my name. It was all my name. I didn't get any loans or anything. I owned this piece of property. And that was such a feeling of ownership that I did everything in my might to make this thing succeed. So I did not care who you were, where you came from, how big you were, what nationality you were. It did not matter. Man, woman, child. If you didn't like the way I ran it, you got booted out. I did that for 2 years. And in 3 years, I didn't make a dime. In fact, it got so bad that I had to move back in with my mom and dad.
Oh, wow.
Because I ended up selling my house to stick more money into this thing. You know, don't get me wrong, I didn't spend my whole life savings, but it was learning by getting thrown into the fire. 3 years go by, and finally it was cleaned up. Actually, 2.5 years was pretty cleaned up. Then I started getting a crowd in that I wanted, which was your average hardworking American. You know, I live in an area which is blue collar. I live in an area where people work at the big three. They work in engineering. They work on the automotive line. Some are in management. Some own their own small businesses. And so I started catering to them, because the prior crowd that went in there were basically just, you know, transient people. They were people that, you know, didn't care about tomorrow. They were not somebody people I would not want to associate with. And yeah, ruffians is a good adjective. But I cleaned it up, and it was a tough haul. And, you know, I was on the phone with the police many times. You know, I was like, I got the nickname, the narco, Mr. Narc. You said a narc on you if you have a skull on your face. I'm like, damn right. So you might as well leave now, you know. And I'm not a big guy. I'm like 5'8", 200 pounds, but the guys that I had backing me were like double my size, you know.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, I spent a lot of money on it. I spent a lot of money on the cleanup. I spent more money on the cleanup of the bar than I did on inventory. But I had a dream and a goal, because I could see, you know, my marketing plan was to attract the people, the hardworking people. And by year 3, I started getting that. In fact, after my 3rd year, I never had to call the police. We never had fights. By year 4, I didn't have bouncers. It was just families came into the bar. My mom and dad would bring their kids up there, because, you know, I would serve kids. You know, not serve, but I made it family friendly. And at nighttime, it might have been a different story. But it turned into mostly people that were, you know, between 28 and 45, 50 years old that started coming in. And most of them were workers. And then I started getting a nightlife with younger crowd, 25 to 35, who would come in on the weekends after 6 o'clock. And it just grew into a flourishing business. And, you know, at the end of my 4th year, I finally made a profit. And then my dad looked at me and said, man, I doubted you for what you did. But, man, and he came in, he seen what I did to the place. And I finally was in a spot where I could finally move out of mom and dad's basement. And you know, it's not that I lived with them. I had my own home working at Ford. But when I took this job on, this business on, I was, you know, broke. Sure. I had money set aside, but I wasn't touching that. That's something else for something else. I could go and have $0 in the bank, but I couldn't afford to live on my own. And by that 4th year, my dad said he was proud of me. And you know, the first 3 years made no money. Then the last 10 years was nothing but profits, and it's a community cornerstone.
Well, you just said something that brings up a good point for anybody who may be watching this now or later that's thinking about owning a bar or being their own manager at a restaurant, bar restaurant combined. This is not, if you're looking for what I'm hearing for you say, this is not a Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. job. This is probably weekends and 12 to 14-hour shifts. Would that be a correct statement?
Well, I tell you what, I was the first 3 years. I was 7 days, 24 hours. I moved in with my mom and dad. I sold my house for capital, but
Mm-hmm.
I made an office at the bar where I slept a lot of nights there anyway.
Oh,
Especially in
wow.
the beginning. Because like I said, it was mine. It was the biggest asset I ever purchased, and I was scared to walk away from it. It was my little baby. I had
Mm-hmm.
gotten divorced. I had no kids, and this was mine. And I love, and don't get me wrong, I love being there, and you have to love being there. You've got to
Yeah.
dedicate your whole life to it. That's what I did, and and starting and getting it. I mean, I just went into that. I owned it, I bought it, but there's a lot of things to go into it prior to me even setting foot into it to obtain the licensing and talk to and get interviewed by various people. The first thing I had to do was I had to get a meet with the chief of police, and he
Oh, really?
interviewed me. Yeah, he did a background check. He asked me what I wanted to do, made sure I didn't have any drunk driving or anything, or I wasn't a criminal.
Right.
And then I had to put a business plan together for the Chamber of Commerce. I had to put one
Sure.
together for the city council that they had to approve.
Mm-hmm.
I had to apply and get approved for a liquor license with the LCC. So even prior to even stepping in there, there were hoops that I was going through 2 years prior to taking over and actually leaving Ford Motor Company. So it's a task and it's daunting. And if you're a family man, probably not the thing to get into.
Yeah.
That's the way for me, no, would not have worked because I was there around the clock. And even, Bob, even when things were flourishing, I was still there 7 days a week. There's a lot of
I'm
things in
sure.
my life that I passed on doing because I
Mm-hmm.
just couldn't leave the business, right? Especially since I took it from rags to riches, so to speak, and I was just very anal about it. I had cameras set up on my phone where I could view it when I wasn't there, see what
Sure.
was going on. And it just became part of me. It was like my kid, no other way to say it.
Well, you mentioned earlier about getting all the approvals from the different types of city and the chief of police. But let's kind of go back a little bit. When you owned a bar, of course, obviously, you do have to have a liquor license. What, for the people that maybe that don't know that are watching this, what does one have to do to apply for a liquor license and even to receive one?
Well, basically, what you got to do, a lot of it though, they do a background check, right? The first and foremost thing is you can't be a felon, and if you're misdemeanors, you're allowed misdemeanors, but your misdemeanor can't be a misdemeanor DUI. You can't
Oh,
be
sure.
involved with drugs or drinking. You can't be involved with larceny. If you did a petty crime, maybe you stole a pack of gum when you're 18 years old at a 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
okay. But they're looking for a person that's an upstanding. See, what you're doing is you're representing the community,
Sure.
and they certainly
Mm-hmm.
don't want to turn that over to a person who has low character. And so they really do a character check on you outside of getting a background check. Because, even the chief of police was awesome.
Oh,
The
good.
hardest thing for me was convincing the city council members that I was going to represent the city up to their standards. And I was rejected the very first time with my proposal simply because I had never done it before. They
Oh,
questioned my motives. Why would you quit a job of yours to open a bar, especially the one that was, a roughhouse bar, right?
like a
And then,
roadhouse. Yeah.
kind of like that. You can equate it to the movie, not quite to the extreme of that movie.
Yeah.
I'm
I was
painting a
thinking of
picture.
that.
I'm painting a picture that it was a tough place to be, but yeah, it wasn't. There was no, 150-pound guy, going in and beating everyone's ass
Yeah.
and this and that. It was, picking up the girl, getting a fight with everybody. No, it wasn't like that. It was just getting the crowd out and telling we don't condone this type of behavior. And that was the biggest thing. And they asked me how I was going to do that. And they weren't too keen on me having ruffians in the bar to take care of the ruffians. They thought violence would prelude to more violence. And in fact, when I talked to the police commissioner, he had the opposite. He knew that being a police officer, being the chief of police, he knew that sometimes it takes a little ball breaking to smooth out the situation. And so he had my back, and I had his number on speed dial, and I utilized that phone number every day for the first couple of years. We were best friends.
Well, let me ask you this. When you bought this place, when you purchased this from the previous owners, was it just a bar? Did it already have the restaurant, or did you add the restaurant later when you bought it?
Well, it had a bar grill. You say restaurant, and it wasn't really a restaurant. When you say restaurant, I wasn't like a steak and lobster all the time. I did. Yeah. It had.
Cafe.
There was two halves of it. Okay, there was this one half. The interior of the bar when you first walk in had a 90-foot beautiful bar. It was 90 feet long, and they had it set up with a bunch of, tables and chairs in back of the bar. And they were mostly, a lot of them were folding chairs. They just pitched beers and whiskey, and they cooked hamburgers. And they had a full kitchen back there. When I say by full kitchen, it was probably the size of a one-car garage. And and they didn't have, which was not really. If you think about it, it's not that big, but it did the job. It served the purpose that they did. And when I took over, I wasn't really going to be expand because you got to remember too. I knew nothing about storage of food and products. What I did was my goal going in with my marketing plan. I wanted to be turn it over, hamburgers, turn it over. I didn't want to keep things. I didn't want food lasting long in the bar, right? I had steak night, I had steak bite night. We did chicken. In fact, in the summer we would do chicken on the barbie out back with shrimp, things like that. But it was like it wasn't a main course. It was something that I would offer a Friday night, maybe once every Friday per month. We would have shrimp and steak. The main staples that we offered was your hamburgers, sandwiches. We had a deep fryer. You could do deep fried cheese sticks, things of that nature. It kind of expanded later on into. My number one seller was chicken wings. Always kept them on. Deep fried them, dropped them.
I'm a cheese sticks fan. I'm a cheese sticks fan for myself.
Oh yeah, we did those. We did the deep fried mushrooms, the cheese sticks. We do at lunchtime we'd do a salad and a burger, with some cheese sticks. We would have steak on Friday nights, but we had a lot of appetizers too, like steak bites, chicken bites, things like that. If you were to go there, you weren't going to take your mom and dad, your wife, and your kids there to have a gourmet meal like you would at like a Texas Roadhouse. It was a place where you get a good meal at a fair price. The main thing we catered to was people after work. They just want to drink some beers and have a good time and watch sports. It was a sports bar. In fact, the bar I had 12 TVs in the bar. I had 6 going right across the main 90-foot bar, which only had one television there. I invested in that, and then I had another TV spread out. I tore everything out, put in booths and tables.
Oh, wow.
And the other side of the bar was a separate bar that I put in there 6 years later, which was a horseshoe-sized bar with 4 televisions, which was separate from the main bar. The main bar was the big aggregate of people that would sit there and hang out, party, and eat. The other side, if you wanted to just kind of chill out, get away from the crowd and the loud music or whatever was going on, the other half of the bar would provide you that. You could get your food, your eats, watch television. And a little more low-key. The pool table was back there. And cool. So it kind of catered to crowds. You could have a rowdy side of the bar, and then you could walk and have a more chill place where you can just, hey, kick back, relax, put up your feet. So it kind of catered
Sounds
both
nice.
sides. So it worked out real well. And like I said, the biggest thing was there was no riffraff after those 3 years. Never had a problem after 3 years. It was just beautiful, and had a great clientele,
Got a question
customers.
in chat. We got a question in chat for you, Rob. It says, Rob, did you make your own beer? Is the question.
I did not make my own beer. We had imported. We started buying some. In the very beginning, it was just bottled. It was just draft beer like Budweiser, Bud Light, Labatt's, and bottled beers. And then as time went on, I got some of those micro brews, that I bought from some different distributors to have in, like Line and Kugel's. We did a few other on tap beers that I bought all from, and everything I bought was from Michigan when it was an IPA beer,
Okay.
which I'm not a fan of that. I'm a bottle beer guy and a shot guy, but I had to cater to the customers, and that became the microbreweries and the IPAs became a big thing, and people wanted that. And of course, I catered to my customers and listened to what they had. In fact, I had a drop box or a suggestion box, especially in the early years, what people wanted. Now, if I were to manufacture my own beer, that would be a whole separate business in itself. Because I looked
Sure.
into that, and that's quite an endeavor to take on.
Well, did you mix drinks there? And if you did, where did you learn to mix drinks? What kind of drinks, if you did?
I never learned to mix a drink. If somebody wanted a Manhattan or something or a martini, you know what? I pulled out the book and I looked right in front of them, man. I swear to God. Or I would ask them, "How do you make that?" Because it started out beer, whiskey, vodka, tequila.
Sure.
Now, yeah, I could pour a rum and coke, a Jack and Coke, you know, wine, pour you a glass of wine. But if you wanted a highfalutin drink, it wasn't. We weren't a martini bar or anything like that. But if somebody
Sure.
wanted something, we certainly had the ingredients. And throughout the years, I learned. And not to mention my staff. I was fortunate because one of the first people I hired was a bar manager from a previous bar, and this young lady, she started right with me. In fact, my key people that started with me was myself, obviously. My bar manager started with me the same year, and my head cook started with me. And my bar manager knew more about running a bar than I did, and I frankly leaned on her.
That
And
helps.
the guy that was my cook, he knew how to cook all your foods, whether you barbecued it, deep fried it, or seared it on the grill in the kitchen. He knew how to handle all that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so those are two key elements. One thing I didn't allude to in the beginning, you can't do it all by yourself. A lot of it's delegation, hiring key people. And if you're going to get a business, I don't care what type of business it is, you need to get key people handling your priorities. And certainly needed a bar manager, and she had about 8 years experience as a bar manager prior to me
Oh, good.
wooing her over to work for me. And my cook had about 4 years experience. But anyways, my bar manager knew how to make all the drinks. And of course, yes, it's really not complicated. I didn't take a mixology class or anything like
Oh,
that,
good. Mm.
and and 90% of the crowd drink beer and maybe a mixed drink or a shot. You
I
might
see.
get some people that wanted to. Nobody was ordering Manhattans or strawberry daiquiris, so it was more of a drink a beer, have a burger, watch a baseball game, the football game, and like I said,
Perfect.
most of the crowd were people getting off work, people coming in on their lunchtime from work. At nighttime, it was a little younger crowd on a Saturday. Monday through Friday was an older crowd. Saturday we had younger people in, and the younger people, they don't do that. They know what type of parties to begin with, how it was set up. So they primarily just went there to drink, and mingle, and again, watch sporting events and so on.
Well, let me ask you this: as the owner slash manager of this bar, I mean, it's all on you as far as employees go. How many employees did you have working for you to keep the bar going, and what were their roles?
I had myself obviously that was hands on, did everything, and of course my main bar manager. She was the day manager,
Hmm.
and then I had my main cook. So we were the three integral people. Then I had a nighttime cook,
Hmm.
and then I employed up to 6 waitresses, barmaids slash waitresses. 4 were full time, and the other 2 were rotational. And the majority of the waitresses were kind of a lot of young girls going to college, spring, college or graduated from high school, and they really had no other endeavor in life, so they came in and got a job there. So it was pretty much all women, with except for me and the 2 cooks,
Sure.
And they rotated it. And I tell you what, I started, me, my bar manager, and my head cook. We were there for all 13 years I was there. My night cook was there for about 5 years. Then he quit, got another cook, and then of the 4 other waitresses that I did have, they were with me for like 5, 6, 7 years, and then I had to replace them the last several years. But I had a pretty stable group of people. They very rarely called in or called off. And it worked out perfect with the shifts, because we were there from 10 in the morning until, closing at 2 at night. But you typically wouldn't get out of there till maybe 3, because once you clean the place up, you clean it up at night. You don't want to go in there in the morning and clean it. So the last shift of the day, you clean it up. So, the cook would always stay after, and I always wanted a man to close the place out if I wasn't available, because so when the girls went home, they would be safe when they left the place, and they would be responsible for cleaning and that. But we never had no more than 6 people in there at any one time. I tried to keep it tight to the vest, because I had to watch the profits. We had a big square building, and the bigger a building is, it's funny because people think that just because you have a huge building that you make huge money. Well, it's quite the opposite, because I've got to account for every square footage with every dollar that I earn. So contrary, and I never knew this until I was halfway into owning it, that the smaller your building is, the more profitable it is, because you don't have the square footage to maximize your dollar. So what I had to do was keep my costs with employees very low. And that's also why that I didn't have a bigger restaurant and offer all these fancy foods, because I had turnkey. I ordered my food on Monday that would last me through Saturday. It was always just a 1-week supply every week. I ordered enough to last 1 week, per month, so on and so forth. So I had no extra food or inventory. Same with the bar. After a while, you get a knack. I sell 7,000 bottles of beer in a week, so I'm going to make sure my inventory is 7,500. You sell 2,500 milliliters of alcohol. I'm making sure that I got 28 milliliters, 28,000 milliliters. So to keep it concise and precise, so you're not overpaying for inventory, because you're paying carrying costs, extra insurances, extra this, extra that, and you don't want anything sitting around. So it was turnover. It was come in, it was first in, first out. It went in the door, went out the door to the customer. In from the distributor, out the door to the customer. Every day, that was my goal, to keep turning it over. So I maintained that. So, and the reason I did that is because I was not going to have a big staff to watch all this. And as time went on, I used to set up a computer system. I did some other company where I could track everything on the computer: inventory, sales, volumes, and ordering. I had an ordering system online where I knew what I had in the back, which was always usually zero. It should have been zero on Saturday, or have some food for Sunday. Then Monday, my orders would come in, because I would order late Sunday night. I would order actually, and vendors, it was cool because the vendors usually came in on Monday for orders, but I had my order done, and I sent them an email as we got more into technology, and I sent them my order Sunday, so I had everything on my doorstep Monday morning, ready for the entire week. So
Good. Well, let's kind of back up a little bit. Now, on the bar, we talked about how you got your liquor license and what you had to do to get that. Now, you're serving food there now. So, tell us about like the health department. Were like health inspections, were they random? Were you told about it in advance? Did they give you
no,
suggestions, or how
yeah,
often
well,
did this happen for the health department?
When I first bought the place, it was random, and it was every week. They just came in. They would come and tell me what I had to clean up. I clean it up, and guess what? 2 days later, they checked on it.
Oh, wow.
They did that for my first year, because the place prior to me owning it had lots of citations.
Mm.
And one of the reasons too, because there's certain things you got to keep things at certain temperatures. Like you can't your freezer. Your freezer got to be 0 Fahrenheit. Your refrigerator's got to be 40 degrees. Anything under 40 degrees in your refrigerator, you're getting cited for. So you had to, and that's mostly with the food, the beer and the wine, and that. Who cares about that? There's a long shelf life on that. When you have foods, meats, chicken, salads, dressings, things like that, that's got to be kept in a precise temperature. So in order to make it easier for me when I had inspections with the health department, that's why I had a limited inventory. Now, don't get me wrong, everything was at 40 degrees or under, and I kept it right around 38. But you hit 40% is when bacteria starts to set in. You might think that your food is fine and crisp, but at 41 degrees, bacteria starts to set in. Now, we can eat that and not get sick, but with the health department is they don't take no chances. They don't play no games. So in the beginning, they were in there 5-6 times a month, if not more. And as they found out what type of owner I was, type of management setup we had over there, it started to lessen and lessen and lessen. So by year 6, in fact, the first 3 years, they were in there a lot because I was cleaning the place up. By around the 5th year, it was twice a year, every 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they just came in, and after the time, they knew that I kept a tight ship, and they knew what to expect every time they came in. And then it took some time to get their trust, and it's not even their trust to get them to know that I knew what I was doing and had a good staff on hand. So that you don't want to, even though I knew some of these people, because I had the same one for about 3-4 years, but even when you see them, there's always something that if they want to find something, they can.
Yeah.
So as long as you are doing the main things that need to be done, and if they ask you to do something, and if you do it, you have no problems. And they'll even maybe overlook something here and there. But if it comes to food and contamination issues,
oh yeah,
no, you got to keep it, as I said, and that's why I try to keep a low inventory.
So it sounds to me that they weren't just like, ready to be in your face and finding you and shutting you down. It looked like they kind of worked with you, like gave you a list of things to change, right?
Yeah,
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like they're a bunch of bad people. I mean, they have a job to do and they do it.
Sure.
Now, if you're a jack off, guess what? You're going to get fined, and they're going to make recommendations to the health department and to the state to get your license revoked and shut you down. And there were many times, especially in the beginning, where I wasn't up to speed. I was a rookie with this. I had a bar manager who knew what she was doing, and my cook knew what they were doing, but there was things I missed a lot in the beginning, and they pointed it out. And when they came back 2 days later and saw that it was corrected, it was cool. I was never fined at all. I was not fined once since I owned it for anything.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, how big was this bar eating place? I mean, like what was the maximum capacity of this bar that you owned?
They wanted me to have 253 people maximum,
wow.
With square footage taken into consideration, and I hit that number a few times, not at once. I mean, I've always had that capacity throughout the week. I would hit it, but it was very rarely jammed. It might have been jammed with 250 on, the New Year's Eve or something like that, but it could hold up to 250 people. Never had that many, and I'm glad that I never had that many people in there. I know it's kind of just because it just gets too crazy, and I didn't market it that way because I didn't want to have to hire the extra staff, and quite frankly, I didn't want to have to tend a bar for 20 hours. So, but there was a maximum, because it was, like I said, 2,500 square feet, I could have 250 people. But I would get the regular crowd, and I get 30 people at lunchtime. my average ticket. If you went at an hourly rate, it went from 12 people in the morning. It would peak to about 38 at lunchtime, and then it would get down to about 27. Then after 5 o'clock, it was spike up to about 65 to 70, whereas about where I kept it. And again, that's where I kind of lost out a little bit of money because the bar was too damn big.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, the square foot number, the dollar per square foot, is you kind of hurt me a little. So that's why what I had done is opened up the other side and just had a place where people could. It was like a bar within a bar where you could chill and just be left alone.
Sure.
I had a lot of people go in there and do work in there, so more of the
Oh, wow.
quieter stuff. So I was just looking for things, just always trying to look for new ideas. And but like I say, after, I'll be honest with you, the first 3 years sucked, and by year 6, I didn't have to do a lot. It was kind of turnkey by the 6th year.
That's good.
All I had to do is walk around and make friends and keep the friends and get more customers.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no.
Well, let me ask you this then. As the owner of a bar, and I'm sure people would be interested to know this, people not only that want to own and manage a bar, but we've heard a lot of establishments that serve alcohol. Sometimes it does happen. You have a patron that has just a little bit too much to drink. So, what steps would you take when you realized, or when your staff notified you that John Doe at the bar had a little bit too much? He probably shouldn't be driving. Did you have a procedure on that, or what would you normally do?
It's always tough to determine if someone's really wasted or not. But
Mm-hmm.
you learn it after just being in the business. If somebody's falling dead drunk out of their bar
Sure.
stool, I would arrange to drive them home, either myself or a staff member, or at the worst case, we would pay a taxi.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
good. That's good. You had
or,
steps in
or
place for that.
or
Okay.
call Uber. Yeah, because one thing I didn't want was somebody to leave my place wasted and kill somebody or themselves, and
Sure.
then fall back on me because my bar was the last alleged place that they had a drink at. And I use that term alleged because a lot of people bar hop from bar to bar, and you don't know where their last stop was. So I never took any. If they said they were leaving and going home, if they were drunk at my place and I knew it, they got a ride home at the
Well, that's a
worst
good.
case. And if people were belligerent, it was very easy to handle. I would tell them I was calling the police and I was going to give them their license plate number, which was a kind of a bluff on my part because I'm not going to let them leave when they're drunk leaving my place. But, that usually got them to, hey, okay, I'll let you drive me home. I'll take a taxi. And I'm like, dude, just
Hmm.
take a taxi home, have your wife come back, get your car. And I didn't have that a lot of problems. There's probably over 100 times I've done it, since I've owned the place. And there's probably many times that I don't even know about because it's not like I work there every single night, you know.
Hmm.
And I just didn't want to hear about it after sometimes. People, and half my staff, they wouldn't tell me anyway if they had to call a taxi. I could go over the books to see what we spent money on and so on, which was not a big deal. We had like $100 in a taxi bin or people for taxi or to take Uber or whatever. So
Well, what would you say? I think you answered this question earlier, but kind of want to make sure. What time of day would you say were your busiest times? Would you say the lunch hour, or would you say when everybody was getting off from work, or the weekend, like Saturday night?
the location of my place, I was busy at 10:30 in the morning until 2 p.m.
Oh, the
was
lunch hour.
my busiest time, and then I was dead from 2 p.m. to 5, and then 5:30 to 9:30 busy again, and then by 10 o'clock it would dwindle out, and that's the weekday, which was great because I paid all my. I needed a big lunch crowd to pay my bills. What happens was I needed to pay. My goal was to make all my money during the lunch hour, and then when Friday, Saturday, Sunday rolled, all that money would be profit. So being
Okay.
busy from 10:30 to 2 was awesome. because I'll tell you right now, there's not a lot of bars that can say that. They don't make a lot of them. If you don't make a lunch crowd, you're going to go out of business for
Oh,
sure.
really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean that's how it is with people that I know and where I live. Your lunch crowd, it pays your bills. Anything after that on the weekend, you're hoping to have your bills paid by Friday, because Saturday and Sunday is where you make all your profit. That's how it worked for me anyway. And I usually have my bills paid by my bills are paid by Thursday, because I was so 10:30 to 2, I was so busy. By Wednesday I was good. It was golden Thursday to Sunday. I had a unique location too, which was great. Again, like I told you about the property, the real estate, prime area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. That helps. Well, let me ask you this then, Rob. For anybody that might be watching this, that's really intrigued by this, that maybe is thinking about going into business for themselves, owning a bar, restaurant, sports bar, whatever. For the person that may be watching this, what would you advise them if they're really serious and wanting to do this? What would be some things? I mean, I guess, some pointers and some self-starting things that you could tell them to do if they want to go into this.
Well, first of all, with in the bar, I did not have I sold my bar in November. It's not because I had the
Okay.
foresight because of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just ready to pack it in. I was lucky enough to sell it when I did, and I sold it during COVID. But the person I sold it to is not going into the restaurant business or the bar business. In fact,
Okay.
50% of the bars in metro area where I live are out of business. 50%, half of them are out of business, and
Oh, really?
the other 50% that are still open will probably half of those will be out of business because they can't recover from what
Mm,
happened with the pandemic.
that's sad. Mm,
You're working with small margins to begin with, and if you don't have a crowd, you're not going to make it. So anyone going to the bar business, I would wish you good luck, because I wouldn't do it. Not in today's environment. You can only have 25% capacity right now in Michigan.
mm,
But I am not discouraging anybody going into business for themselves. The things that I would recommend is this: you need patience, you need perseverance, and if you have your mind set on a goal, you can achieve it. Because I had a lot of obstacles thrown at me. I quit a job of 19 years. My entire family thought I was crazy. In fact, I thought I was crazy too. In fact, I had to move back here with my parents, man, as a grown man, for God's sakes. But you keep the dream alive and you go forward with patience and perseverance. You get knocked down, you get back up, and you keep going forward. Because the minute that you give in, you just wasted your investment, you have wasted your time, and you're going to regret quitting perhaps the good job that you had. So my driving force is the self-will, man, the self-preservation. You need to have the will to never give up and fight and know and always call yourself a winner. You got to be a successful person. You got to think that you will succeed no matter what. It's all about not how skilled you are. It's not about how smart you are. It's about what you have in your heart. It's
your
about what
drive. Hmm.
your drive. If you don't have mental fortitude, if you don't have perseverance, patience, if you can take the downs, because there's more downs than ups, but if you stick to your plan and have a good business plan, you got to study your area. You got to know the demographics, the marketing, you got to know all the finances, the resources, the people to contact. If you have that in place prior, and if you have the drive and that commitment, you'll succeed. Not everybody has that. I'm not bragging. I am just telling you how it is, because I knew if I did not have that, I never would have taken that responsibility on. But I wanted to do something, and I knew that I would succeed at it. And I think it's something people are born with, and it's not something you learn. You either got it or you don't. But the number one thing is you got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you work at Lowe's. I don't care if you're an executive before it. I don't care. if you pump gas, it don't matter. If you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to be good at it.
Well,
You
I can
know.
add to that. I've always heard the saying that if you're doing what you love, it's really not work. If you're really loving what you're doing, it's really not, you can't consider it work if that's really your passion. That's what I've always
Well,
heard.
and here's the thing: I work 6 hours a day, 6 days a week at Ford Motor Company, 10, 12 hours a day. That was a job. That was work. After, yeah, the first 5, 6 years, I loved it. But after that, it was like, oh, I gotta get up, go to work. There's not a day I regretted going to work. There's not a day that I didn't mind spending the night at the bar. There's not a day that I regretted putting in 15 hours. There's not a day I regretted that, my wait staff called up because now I have to go on to work. Didn't regret it. You know what? It was mine, man. And you have to assume those responsibilities. You have to know that Bob Van Buren might call off on Friday. So I know that I have to be on call because he might just call off. And when he calls off, I can't be mad at him. I got to go in with a smile and do my job. And that's how I approach it.
So I've got a question from the chat. The question is, I'll read verbatim. So if you are starting a business today in Michigan, Rob, what would you start today? If you're going to start one today?
I would start, I would start a convenience store.
Oh, those are money makers, I believe.
Well, they are if you own the building. If you have, I wouldn't buy a franchise. I would buy if you own the building and the property outright. It's very easy to. First of all, it's convenience stores and party stores are your number one money makers during the pandemic. I did
That's
the
true.
research. I
Mm-hmm.
did the research. They are booming, and I think that in the state of America and the world with the pandemic, it's not going away. And I think that this is the new norm. And I think that more and more people are going to be going to smaller shops. I think they're going to be going to stores. They're not going to be going to the big Kroger's to buy a gallon of milk or buy a 6-pack of beer or a bottle of whiskey. They're going to go to the mom and pops. And they've always been there, but now they're flourishing even more because there's less people in there. But what are they? Remember my first key was you want bigger is not necessarily better. You get a small little party store, you pack it with inventory, and if you get 10 people coming in every hour, you're making money. That's what I would do today.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, we appreciate the conversation. We've learned a lot from restaurant and bar. You told me a lot of things that I don't know. Like, for example, in my history, normally as a patron, I go to a restaurant or go to a bar back in the day. Yeah, I don't think of much what happens behind the scenes. So it's good to get this take that how much work goes on behind it, and especially I'm hoping this maybe influences somebody that might be thinking about not necessarily a bar or restaurant, but going into business for themselves. It just, from what you've told us, it just takes the drive. You have to
Yeah.
have that. You got to push yourself to
And,
do better.
Bob, I will say this. I'm a private guy. I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody how great it's been, but I'm going to tell you right now that if you have the set of goals, if you have that drive that I spoke about, 5 minutes ago, it pays off because now today, after selling my bar, I don't. I'm 54 years old, and I don't really have to get another job unless I want to. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing work. I could say I'm retired, but I don't like to say that because it'll make you look old. I'm 54, and I'm sure I'll probably get another job, make some money doing something. But now I can do other things, like the venture I'm doing now, as you well
Sure.
know. I'm having fun doing what I'm doing now with text and this
Yeah,
this whole side,
let's
of life.
yeah, let's switch gears here, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to just kind of do a plug in for Rob, and he'll give you more information. You can actually see Rob. He co-hosts a show here on YouTube on the Trinity Paracryptid Research Channel. So, Rob, I'll let you do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in another topic, another channel, Rob is co-host of another channel, and he'll tell you about this right now. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, you know, Tex, me and Tex, Tex started a channel called Trinity Paracryptid Research with a brilliant guy named Jason a few years back, and
Mm-hmm.
that's their channel, and they talk cryptids, and I believe they're on Mondays. I think it's 7 Central, 7:30
Yeah,
perhaps.
so 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern.
And I just joined now with Tex and the team a few months ago. And Tex and I do a brunch with Bigfoot, talk about Bigfoot and all of his high strangeness, noon central, and that's taken off real well. The entire channel is doing real well, and brunch is just an extended asset to the company. Since we're talking business, but yeah, so it's great, and we have great shows. And I know probably people in chat are probably familiar, but if you're not, people that see this later, yeah, check it out. We talk Bigfoot, we talk cryptids, we talk all high strangeness, and it's an awesome show. And yeah, come on, check us out.
And tell us the name of the show that you do with Tex.
Brunch with Bigfoot.
And that's when? Tell us again.
That's on Thursdays. That's on Thursdays at 12 Central. 1 in the East, 12 in the Central.
I just put in chat the name of the channel. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested to hear more about cryptids and Bigfoot and the general unknown, that's the channel you want to subscribe to. It's called Trinity Paracryptid Research, and that's where you can see Tex and Rob and Jason. I think it's a very good show, very interesting. So, Rob,
yeah, and Bob's also the executive producer, so he's got his toes dipped in a few other areas too. And Bob, you're doing a great job. I like the show. I'll be tuning in every week, and I wish you nothing but success, man.
Thanks a lot, Rob, and I appreciate you coming on here on the Van Buren Variety Show to talk more about bar restaurant. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. There's so many people, not necessarily a bar or a restaurant, but like a department store, a convenience store, just being their own boss. And I hope this, and I actually believe that this segment kind of will give people that drive. You know what? I can do it. If I've got the perseverance and the steadiness and I'm diligent about it, I can do this too. So hopefully that we gave a positive message to somebody today.
Absolutely. I think so. I think I think it's the way to live. I did 19 years in a corporate umbrella, 13 years on my own, and I don't know what my future has in store for me now, but I know it's going to be good and positive. And in fact, what I'm doing now, I love. So maybe we could turn that into something big. You never know, but you always have to be positive. If you're not positive, forget it. Stay under the covers and sleep your life away, man. You got to get out there. Believe in you. You can make it happen. If you don't believe in yourself, it ain't going to happen.
And that's the key right there of any job or any restaurant or bar that you're operating, any business, even if you're not self-employed, if you're working for a company, you've got to have that drive. So.
Absolutely, not just self-employment, executives, any job that you have. I appreciate everybody that works from the line worker to the executive and everybody else in between.
Okay. Well, Rob, once again, I appreciate you being here on the Van Buren Variety Show. Hope to see you again soon. And
all right.
Make sure everybody, ladies and gentlemen, you go to Trinity Paracryptid Research, like and subscribe to the channel to get updates from Tex, Jason, and of course my guest here, Rob. And make sure you like and subscribe to Van Buren Variety as well. Rob, you have a great night, and again, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, our time is up. Just when we're having fun, the time is always running out. But I appreciate you all being here. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you've learned a lot. And tune in next week because I'm here every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, where we'll have another guest, another topic. It's a grab bag of entertainment. You won't know until you tune in. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe to the Van Buren Variety Show. In the meantime, thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a great night. And once again, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. Good night.